The Broncos fall in the finale 27-14 to the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Broncos postgame show starts right now. Hello, and thank you for joining us here in studio. I am Phil Milani alongside Nick Ferguson, the final postgame show of the season. This was not the way the Broncos wanted to end the season.
No, Phil, it wasn't the way the Broncos wanted to end the season. They lose the game to the Raiders, a team that it seems though constantly they've lost to this particular team, starting at the beginning of the season and ending and bookending the season as well. And I know the guys are going to be really disappointed going into the offseason, but they do have some positives to look forward to.
They finished the season 8-9. It's the 8th consecutive loss to the Raiders. So let's get to the highlights from out in Las Vegas. Jarrett Stidham making his second start, facing his former team today, down 7 in the second. Jerry Jeudy gets free, breaks a few tackles. Nick, this looked a lot like that L.J. Humphrey touchdown from last week. 24-yard touchdown for Jerry Jeudy to tie the game up. But the Raiders scored 17 unanswered. The Broncos trying to fight back in this one. It's Jeudy again. Almost gets there. A 47-yard gain on this play. A few plays later on 4th down, a direct snap to Javonte Williams. His second rushing touchdown this season. The Raiders, though, proceeded to go on a 15-play drive. They took off nearly 8 minutes from the clock. Defense just could not get off the field, and the Broncos fall to the Raiders 27-14. Let's go out to Las Vegas and check in with our team reporters, Sydney Jones and Aric DiLalla.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, of course not how the Broncos wanted to end their season here. But Aric, I want to start by looking at the defense. 27 points was the most they've allowed by a division opponent all season long. They struggled to stop the run today. Overall, what did you just think about their performance?
Yeah, I think the run game is part of it, right? Sid, more than 130 yards for the Raiders on the ground. I thought too many big plays down the field, maybe some coverage breakdowns. There was that touchdown right before the end of the first half where Davante Adams is able to beat Jaquan McMillan. That was a big turning point to allow the Raiders to go into the locker room up 2 scores. And it just, I'm sure it's not how the defense wanted to finish this season here. Got to find a way to shut these guys down, not allow them to make so many big plays. Jacoby Myers, another 2 touchdowns against the Broncos. It was a tough day defensively.
Yeah, and Aric, offensively, certainly a different task this week going up against Antonio Pierce's defense, who's been playing really well as of recently. What did you see from them and how they struggled today? Yeah,
well, like you mentioned, Sid, this defense is #1 in scoring defense since Antonio Pierce took over 8 weeks ago, and so it was a different challenge than Jarrett Stidham saw last week. He was under pressure a lot, sacked 5 or 6 times, a lot of 3rd and longs, particularly in the first half, and the run game didn't really help the Broncos out. They weren't able to get much going there. No turnovers until late in the game, but just not able to do enough consistently on offense to get something going and stay in this football game.
That's going to do it for now. We're going to head inside the locker room, Phil, to catch up with a few players, but until then, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you very much, guys. We're back here in studio. Phil Milani alongside Nick Ferguson. Nick, Jarrett Stidham, his second start here. What do you think about the performance? It seemed like he was facing pressure all day.
Yeah, it is hard to play quarterback in this league no matter who you are and how long you played or how, few games you've actually had to start when you're constantly under rest. I never really felt as though Stidham was able to kind of gain his bearings in the pocket because he was always thinking that he was going to get sacked. There was one moment in the game where Max Crosby just kind of burst up the field and just was on top of the snap count. And you can see that it took Jarrett Stidham by shock and forced him, I think, maybe to kind of clamp down on the ball a little and not really look down the field. That is something that pass rush can actually do to you. But he did show when he was given time, he was able to find receivers down the field. He found Brandon Johnson down the field. He found Jerry Jeudy. But if you're constantly looking over your shoulders, it makes it really difficult to execute.
Oh, most definitely. He was facing pressure, even if it wasn't a sack. He was sacked 5 times on the day, but he was facing pressure all day. And you saw signs of what Stidham could be. You saw him make some throws over the middle of the field, connect with some guys, and then they were able to run after the ball, after the catch. And you mentioned the 2 there. Brandon Johnson, 4 catches for 88 yards. Jerry Jeudy, 3 for 79. So those guys really came alive today.
Yeah, they did. And here's what happens, Phil. Every time we've done this, we've seen, well, I guess for the back half of the season, that is, Jerry Jeudy has put up some numbers and really showed people what type of receiver that he can be, but it's never been in a winning fashion. So we highlighted, we tried to as much as we can, but you still would like Jerry to get the numbers and the team to win. But it should show his critics that this is a player that has big play capabilities. You set him up, you put him up in a situation to be successful, he can make the defense pay. And you talked about the run that was similar to the Jordan Humphrey. When he caught the crossing route, I mean, you can tell he was smelling the end zone and he was wanting to get inside that pay dirt. But also another guy you talked about, Brandon Johnson, another talented wide receiver that Stidham was able to connect with. This team has talent at the wide receiver position, but once again, those receivers plus quarterback plus pass protection, they go hand in hand.
And Cortland Sutton left this game a little bit early with an injury. And the Broncos did not get much help from the running game, 20 rushes for just 48 yards. Had a tough time on third down today. So not quite good enough on the offensive side of the ball. But here's the head coach and also the starting quarterback talking about the performance today.
I thought he hung in there. Had some tough snaps. Got hit quite a bit. I think he had 5 sacks, nine pressures. But overall, listen, he battled. I'll watch the film, and we'll have a chance to see more of it. I'm not quite sure what our third down numbers are. I do know, at one point, we were 3rd and 11 plus like 4 times. I think we averaged 3rd and 8. I thought we got beat up front. I was disappointed how we played up front, I'll be honest with you. And I expected us to be able to run the ball better. And certainly, you know, we did a lot to nudge and bump and, you know, help ourselves in protection, and yet obviously not enough.
You know I got to do better for sure. There's definitely things I could have done to help us, you know, move the ball more efficiently and that sort of thing. But like I said, it's just hard to know right now exactly what it was. But like you said, just disappointed in the outcome, obviously, and we'll learn from it and get better.
And let's talk about the other side of the ball a little bit here, Nick. Your specialty, the defensive side here. You mentioned it. They came out starting to play with some passion there, but then especially that final drive could not get off the field.
No, they couldn't. And when you look at defense, or even offense for that matter, when you need to make plays, that's when you need to shine the brightest, and that's when you need your impact players definitely to show up. And Zamir White, tip your cap to him. I mean, they did a great job running the ball, putting the Broncos defense on their heels, but you would like to have seen the team make some plays to help out Jarrett Stidham and the offense who was struggling.
Yeah, I felt like maybe if they could get the ball back quickly there, maybe they could get back into it. But Zamir White finished with 25 carries for 112 yards on the ground. So some of the demons from the past for the Broncos defense came back alive today against the Raiders. Even Aiden O'Connell looked pretty good out there.
It is a prime example of when you have time to throw the ball. I mean, have time in the pocket. You have the ability to find the open receivers, and he did a good job throwing some of those little short intermediate passes to Devontae Adams. And Pat Surtain had him covered, but once again, timing and rhythm allows a quarterback to find open receivers, and Jacoby Myers made some big plays today for the Raiders too as well.
Yeah, Jacoby Myers made a few plays. It wasn't just Surtain. I mean, they seemed like they were picking on Jaquan McMillan a couple of times there, Fabian Moreau. So the Raiders, give them a little bit of credit here, playing hard for Antonio Pierce, and then also really a good game plan on how to attack this Broncos defense. Let's go inside the Broncos locker room one final time here and check in with Sydney Jones.
Thanks, Phil. We're here inside the locker room with wide receiver Jerry Jeudy. Jerry, obviously not how you guys wanted to end the season here. So what did head coach Sean Payton say to you guys here in the locker room?
You know, basically the same thing you just said. You know, it's not how we wanted to end, but you know, just being a team that went from 1-5 to where we are now, you know, that's a big stepping stone. So, you know, just keep grinding for real.
Yeah, Jerry, looking at that, like you mentioned, you guys were, 7-4 in the last 11 weeks. How can you take that momentum of how you guys ended the season into this offseason and the next upcoming year?
Just by keep grinding, you feel me? Just next year, just learn from this year and just improve. Just look back and see what we need to improve on for the next year and just focus on those key points.
Well, Jerry, looking at today's game, last one for you, just what was your evaluation of the offense's performance?
I feel like we just wasn't consistent enough. You know, I feel like we had a good scheme, good game plan against them. Was making all the right reads, was making all the right throws. I just think it wasn't as consistent as we needed to be.
Jerry, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Phil, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you very much, Sydney. One bright spot, Nick, for the Broncos defense this season. Alex Singleton finished with 177 tackles.
All I can say about Alex Singleton is I'll be back. And, I mean, this guy is a tackling machine, and I call him the Broncos version of the Terminator because to amount,
177.
177 tackles, the most in franchise history. Look, I'm a defensive guy. I love tackles. But to have that many in a season, man, that is a major accomplishment for him. So tip your cap to him. So it's not all kind of like, down smiles here for the Denver Broncos. There's some upside here. I mean, this team, for the first time in several years, actually won 8 games. I mean, that haven't happened since
2016.
2016. So, listen, it's not the way that any of us wanted the season to end. So there's some bright spots here, but also there's some things that need to be cleaned up this offseason. So I'll take where the Broncos have improved this year, and I'll put a check mark right past that.
Yeah, I think first year under head coach Sean Payton here, you wanted to see that improvement. I think you've seen that. You've seen the culture change around here. Did not make the playoffs, but it does feel like things are heading in the right direction. Of course, the big thing heading into this offseason, though, is what's going to happen at the quarterback position.
Yeah, that quarterback position is all important. I know Coach Sean Payton said he wanted to create a spark. He benched Russell Wilson for Jarrett Stidham. So the Broncos have a tough road ahead as far as figuring out what they're going to do in the offseason. But there's a possibility that the Broncos come 2024 could be, 2024's version of the Detroit Lions. We've seen it happen. You make a couple of roster moves here and there, bring in some free agency, change up a couple of things, and then next thing you know, the Broncos could be on the opposite side of things and now being smiling up instead of smiling down.
Yeah,
so,
you definitely want some bigger smiles around
Bigger
here.
Smiles, of course.
And excited to see what comes this offseason. Certainly some changes around the corner here for this Broncos team. All right, well, that's going to do it for us. The final 27-14 against the Raiders. Nick, I appreciate you, man. This was fun all year long.
Hey, man, appreciate it. I look forward to doing it again next year.
Keep it rolling. All right, that's going to do it for us. For Nick Ferguson, I am Phil Milani. This has been the Broncos Postgame Show.